So we are here with Quan Chi, and Quan Chi is a very strong keep out character and a very strong zoner. Though a lot of people beg to differ, I think he's pretty darn good. He's got some very weird neutral, but he has some really good buttons, some really good zoning, and I'm going to show you how to get started with this character today. So the first thing I want to show you is his specials, and his first special is his main projectile. It's his back forward one, and it looks like that. It's a high projectile that's admittedly pretty darn fast, and it gives you a lot of block advantage. So you can go ahead and keep zoning and set up some other things like his portal, which I will show later. But it is a very, very normal average projectile. It can be done in the air, which turns it into a mid, which is also a pretty fast projectile. The problem with doing it from the air is that a lot of people can dash under it pretty easily. And if they do manage to get under it, they'll get a full combo punish on you because there is quite a bit of recovery for Quan Chi when he lands from the air. So really, you only do this projectile from full screen. Any distance that's less than full screen, it will whiff. And you can't do it as an instant air where you like jump and immediately do it, just like that. Though that is very hard to do, at least for me. So I mainly stick with the ground version. And this is what it looks like on hit from full screen. You get even more hit advantage, 31 frames. There's a lot of pushback on it, as you can see here. It makes him stagger backwards. And the air version as well has a lot of pushback, though it gives you less hit advantage. And of course, if you were to do this right up next to your opponent on block, it is very, very unsafe, which means you will eat a full combo. Now, the enhanced version is really, really good. It becomes a mid projectile that has a lot of block advantage, and there are 3 different speeds. There's the regular speed when you just do it like that, or you can hold forward and it becomes a really fast one, which has less block advantage, but you can catch people who are dashing up or are expecting a regular high projectile and you can catch them ducking. Or you could do a really, really slow one that has a lot of block advantage, and you can just keep setting up things from here. So it is a very good space control enhanced projectile. You know, depending on which version you use, your mileage will vary, but every version has really good pushback, and it kind of keeps your opponent grounded. Some people will try to jump over it, but if they try to jump over it, this does have a very big hitbox where it can catch people jumping, and you get even more hit advantage if it catches someone who's jumping, and it pushes them basically full screen from any distance. And of course, you can do this from the air. People jumping will get hit by it. People who are going to try and dash under it will get hit by it, giving you tons and tons of advantage. And it has the benefit of eating through other projectiles, which gives you some anti-zone. So depending on the speed that you do, you can actually punish people for trying to anti-zone you with their own projectiles with it. Yeah, it's just all around a very strong move. So the next projectile is his down back one, and it's an overhead, and it's -7 on block at that distance. Obviously, if you're right up next to someone, it's -8, which means if they do a jab string, you'll get punished. And there are 4 different distances. There's close, mid, far, and there's very far. Now, because it hits overhead and comes down from the sky, what I like to do is that people will try to jump over, people who like to jump over the regular back forward one, I will throw this out instead, and it gives you tons of hit advantage against jumping opponents, and it bounces them back quite a bit. So it's very good, again, for controlling the spacing, controlling the neutral. People who are very impatient or who really want to get in, they'll, you know, dash up, duck under the high projectile. So you throw one of these out, it catches people who are ducking, and it catches people who are trying to jump over your projectiles. It's just all around, again, another very strong projectile to control the neutral. And the enhanced version will actually net you a little bit of a combo if it is not blocked. As you can see there, it's 2 hits and it bounces your opponent. You got 54 frames of hit advantage. And it combos from his stand 1-2 string. You can combo from it. You can do a stand 4 from it and, you know, get even more damage. And it's a tracking projectile as well when you enhance it, which means no matter where your opponent is on the screen, this will land right on top of them wherever they are. So if people are jumping and they're managing to get away from your regular version, you can go ahead and do the enhanced version instead, and wherever they jump to, it will land on them. So it's a guarantee that if someone is jumping, the enhanced version will catch them, and you can do a stand 4 and get a little more damage, keep them away from you. So the next special of his that I want to show is his back forward 4. It's his teledrop. It's an overhead. It's super minus on block. You eat a full combo if it's blocked, and people can up block it to make it even more minus. And it is a tracking overhead as well, which means if someone is trying to like dash forward, Quan Chi will land on them. Same with a jump. It's actually not a bad anti-air if people try to jump in on you or try to jump over your regular back forward 1. If you see them jumping and you do a back forward 4, you will catch them basically every time. Now, it's actually not as good as you think, because what Quan Chi wants to do is be at full screen. And this actually works against you because it puts you about mid-screen. Now, you do have 10 frames of hit advantage to potentially do something, but if you do land a back forward 4, you want to get away. You want to basically backdash immediately and start using your pokes to push your opponent back, because Quan Chi is at his weakest when you are right next to somebody. He has very slow buttons, which I'll get into later. But yeah, you can use this to anti-air, and it combos with his stand 4, so if Sub-Zero were to stop blocking, you can actually get a natural combo with it. So really only use it if it'll close out the match. You know, you confirm from a stand 4, then you go into back forward 4. But otherwise, I would recommend against using it because it kind of works against Quan Chi. Now, the enhanced version is also not that great. Obviously, you get a little more damage, but the main use is that it's his armored reversal. He gets 1 hit of armor. The problem is that this is his armored reversal, and it's not really a special that you want to use too often. So, yeah, just all around, it's not a very good special. I know a lot of people like using it. They like going into stand 4 and then back forward 4, but only use it if you think your opponent is going to press on wake up, or if your opponent ended up jumping in the air and you want to close out a match a little quicker and get some pressure up close, then use it. But otherwise, he has much better options. So yeah, that's his back forward 4. Not too great. Don't really recommend using it. So his next special is his down back 4, and it's a low far-reaching kind of a throw. Not really a throw. It's just a low attack that will slam your opponent at a decent distance away, and you get hit advantage of 15 frames. It does have very good enough reach. It reaches around mid-distance, which means if your opponent is getting closer and closer and closer to you, and they're expecting you to keep zoning with his back forward 1, you throw this out instead, so while they're ducking, they'll get caught by it. And if you enhance it, it costs 2 bars of meter, which for Quan Chi, it's not actually too bad because he does build meter very fast from his zoning, especially if your opponent is blocking every projectile. But if you do enhance it, it becomes a launcher and you can get some damage this way, push your opponent full screen again, and then, you know, continue zoning. A lot of people like to use the down back 4 as a combo ender. I actually recommend you don't do that because, again, Quan Chi is at his strongest when he is full screen, when he has as much space as possible. Maybe at mid screen too, he's very strong. But if you use this as a combo ender, the problem becomes that Quan Chi doesn't really have a lot of space. Your opponent could do an armored wake up, and then now they're right up in your grill, and then they can start pressuring you, and Quan Chi is very slow. But yeah, a lot of people like it for the damage, which is fine, but I would recommend you only use this to close out matches. If you can guarantee that you'll win if you do his down back 4 combo, then I'd say by all means go for it. But typically, you don't want to end combos with this because he has much better enders that will leave your opponent full screen, so you can go ahead and start zoning again and get even more hit advantage. But do throw it out if your opponent is getting close to you and they think you're going to go for a back forward 1. This catches people a lot of the time. So his next special is his back down forward 2. It's called Field of Bones, and it looks like that. It's this little, not really a trap that he places on the ground. And there's 4 different distances. There's close, medium, far. Whoops, I messed it up. And then there's very far. And yeah, if you hit, it looks like that. It's a mid, gives you a little bit of hit advantage, and it just holds your opponent in place for a bit. But what you really want is the enhanced version. So the enhanced version, on a whiff, it stays on the ground for quite a bit. But if it lands, it will hold your opponent in this cage for 160 frames. And your opponent in that time cannot walk forward or backwards. The only option they have is to jump out of the cage. But as you can probably tell, this is great for Quan Chi, because now he can just zone. And you get enough hit advantage on hit that it lets you guarantee a portal setup and get right into zoning, which is, again, perfect for him. On block, it is very minus. It is minus 21, which means that you will eat a full combo if you're right next to your opponent. If you're across the screen, it's still minus 21, by the way. But the main use of it is you would go for setups that would guarantee your opponent will be put into that cage. And you can actually do it from his stand 4. His stand 4 has enough hit advantage to where you can cage your opponent from any distance on the screen. So you would confirm from stand 4 into the cage, and that's how you would use it in that scenario. Otherwise, you could do it from his stand 1-2, that works. Or you could do like a setup with Cyrax or Sub-Zero and put them in the cage. But otherwise, if you confirm from stand 4 into the cage, then it's just great space control. So basically what I'm saying is, don't ever just throw it out randomly, because people are going to block it, and that's a lot of disadvantage for you, which means they could get closer. But confirm into it from your different strings that you have and your different buttons, because it is incredibly good for that reason. So his next special is his down back 3, and this is his portal that buffs all of his specials that are projectiles. It doesn't buff his back forward 4 or down back 4 or his cage. It only buffs his projectiles. And you can do a total of 2 buffed projectiles from the regular down back 3. It does have 12 frames of startup and 44 frames of recovery, which effectively makes it around a 56 frame move. So obviously, if you do it on block right next to somebody, just imagine he was blocking there, then they could punish you for it. But you could definitely like throw it out if you wanted to right next to your opponent. I've done that sometimes before if they're expecting a full string. And if people are expecting full string and you do this, more often than not, you can actually go ahead and get a couple of skulls out. And if you're using a cameo like Cyrax, excuse me, then you can go ahead and actually do some neat little setups where you guarantee the portal and you guarantee distance by zoning. But yeah, the portal changes all of his projectiles, and the enhanced version is actually a very good utility tool. So the enhanced version makes it so he doesn't buff his projectiles, and it stays out for only 90 frames. But the benefit to it is that it pushes your opponents back. So if your opponent is right up next to you, pressuring you, and it's finally your turn, you can go ahead and cancel into the enhanced version, and now they can't get close to you, and you can get away safely. So that is the utility behind it. And you can also move both versions by holding 3. If you hold 3, the portal will move, but it moves really slowly. So what happens is that Quan Chi will actually walk out of the zone. And the same goes for the enhanced version, which makes the enhanced version that much better, because you can kind of do some Sento stance stuff where you hold block, so you can just move the portal by itself without moving Quan Chi. So there's some cool utility behind it. It's his most important special, in my opinion, that isn't a projectile, because it just enhances everything. And now I'll actually show you the buffed versions of his projectiles. So the buffed version of his back forward 1 shoots out 3 skulls now, and they hit high, mid, mid. They give you more block advantage. And because it hits mid, that means people can no longer duck it. They have to block. And it has tons of pushback. And this is what it looks like on hit. Lots and lots of pushback, lots of hit advantage. And just so you could get an idea of the pushback, it pushes them about mid-screen distance. So that is very, very good. And it changes the properties of the enhanced version as well, which makes it so it launches and you get a little bit of a combo. I dropped it there, but you see the idea, and you can actually do it mid-combo. You know, depending on your cameo, you'll have an easier time compared to others, like Cyrax, and you can do some really cool stuff like that, which I'll show more of those later. But yeah, it's a very, very good... It straight up makes his back forward one stronger, and his back forward one from the air, it becomes a homing projectile, which means if people are trying to like dash under it, what will happen is that it will lock onto them basically, and it will follow wherever they go. The back forward one from the air is actually not too great in my opinion, because I think a lot of the time it actually whiffs. What will happen is that people will dash, and the skull from the air will actually try to redirect back behind them, but it will actually hit the ground and it won't hit them. So I really don't recommend the air version all that much, unless you want to go for the enhanced skull and you're amplifying it, because it also turns that one into a launcher. But otherwise, just do the regular grounded back forward one. It's really, really good, and it does tons of damage, as you can see there. And the buffed down back one is also very good. It shoots out 3 mid projectiles now. But the downside is that you cannot choose the distance, but it does hit at every single distance. Because it hits mid and it comes from the sky, people cannot jump it, right? As I said earlier, people cannot jump down back one by itself. They cannot jump down back one while it's buffed up. So you can see there, it hits twice, and Quan Chi can actually get a combo from that. And the enhanced version of down back one while buffed is also pretty good. It basically takes the homing aspect of the regular version, where it will always track onto your opponent, and it gives you 2 extra projectiles to work with. So you can actually still get a combo if people like try to jump and you do it. I messed it up there. You can go into a stand 4 and you can do some cool stuff that way. But yeah, again, very good space control. That is what his down back one is for. Like, even the regular version is very good space control. This just ups the space control even more. So it's very, very good. So now I want to show you his normals and his strengths. Now, as many of you probably already know, Quan Chi has really slow jabs. He has really slow buttons, but they're for a good reason. Now, obviously, I'm not a big fan that his down one is 9 frames or his stand one is 8 frames, but the reason why that is because his jab string is honestly one of his best strings. The reason why I don't feel the slow startups as much is because I keep myself, you know, super far away. If you're expecting to play Quan Chi right up next to your opponent, I can't really tell you anything other than you're probably going to be really frustrated with the slow startups. You really have to space everything out because Quan Chi does not do well up close. And another reason why his stand one is 8 frames is because of the strings they go into. So they either go into 1-2-2, which is a high mid high. So if you try to space this out to where only the last hit will hit, people can actually duck that. And as you saw there, on hit, it knocks your opponent super far back, basically full screen. And on block, stand 1-2 by itself is -2 frames, which is very, very safe. And 1-2-2 pushes your opponent a little bit further, and it gives you a block advantage of 0, which means you're actually at a perfect distance to go into forward 2 just by micro walking forward a little bit. So you can push your opponent even further back. But yeah, his stand 1-2 is probably one of his best strings because his stand 1 is his fastest button. This means you're going to be punishing everything with stand 1. You're always going to go into stand 1, right? And from this, you have 2 options. You have stand 1-3, which is an overhead natural launcher, which gives you some of his biggest combos, you know. You can do some crazy stuff. Or you can go into stand 1-2, which will allow you to do his bone cage on hit, and it's a natural combo. So you can do a stand 1-2 enhanced bone cage and jump back, get away, make a portal, and then start zoning. Or if you're using Cyrax or Sub-Zero, you could do stand 1-2, go into a net, do this, go into that, back up a bit, start zoning. There's just a lot you can do from his stand 1-2, and that's why it's an 8-frame button. If you have the right cameo, you can do some really messed up setups. If you don't have a cameo like Cyrax or Sub-Zero, you can just do a bone cage instead and get away safely and then start zoning your opponent. There's a lot you can do. And if you don't want to do that, stand 1-3 is a natural launcher. You can go ahead and do some really cool combos and push your opponent super far away if I didn't drop my darn combo. But yeah, it's just a great string. And because stand 1-3 hits overhead, and by the way, on block stand 1-3, completely safe. If you like doing stand 1 staggers, you like staggering his jab, which honestly, don't recommend doing that with Quan Chi. It's 8 frames, your opponent's jab will beat out your jab. But you like doing stand 1-3 a lot, you can do a little bit of a 50-50 with stand 1-3 and stand 1 cancel into down back 4. So there's a lot you can do with his jab string as a whole, and that's why it's 8-frame startup on just a regular jab. There's a lot you can do with it. So his next string I want to show is his 2-1-4-4 and 2-1-3. 2-1-4-4 is a high-mid overhead string, and 2-1-3 is a high-mid-low string. Both are safe on block, and you can end a 2-1 a little early to just do high-mid and you're -3. Or you could do 2-1-4 and you'll be -5 at a pretty decent distance away. And what this does is that it opens up Quan Chi to a lot of 50-50. A lot of people like using his 2-1 strings and going for those 50-50. But in my opinion, I don't think the string is as good as people think. Obviously, having this 50-50 is great, right? But you have to be pretty darn close to actually land 2-1. Obviously, it has that distance with its little laser, but his stand 2 is 12 frames. That's slower than an Omni-Man back 1. It's a very slow stand 2, which is why his stand 1 is better. And it hits high, and the next hit is 20 frames startup. So it's just a very slow string that if somebody ducks it, they'll get a full combo punish on you. But there is some utility to it. As you can see here on hit, 2-1-4-4 gives you 25 frames of hit advantage, so you can either get away or you can make some, make them guess on wake up. And it, of course, it's a knockdown. Though the problem is, the closer Quan Chi is to his opponent, the weaker he gets, and you're guessing if your opponent is going to do armor on wake up, which makes it a little less good for Quan Chi. And 2-1-3 is a high mid low, pushes your opponent even further away, gives you more hit advantage, and in my opinion that makes it better than 2-1-4-4. But if you do 2-1-4, it is a combo, it does combo into his down back 4, so you can go ahead and enhance down back 4 and get a combo that way. But the downside to 2-1-4 is that you can't combo into his bones. So you can see there, that was not a natural combo. That was only 3 hits, and then the bones hit by themselves. You cannot combo into a Cyrax net. You can't do as much as you'd want to do with Quan Chi, compared to his 1-2 string, that is. Certain cameos you can combo from 2-1-3. I'm sure you've seen people combo with Scorpion. You can also combo with Cyrax with Up Buzzsaw as well, and get a little bit of a combo. Overall, I don't think his 2-1-4 and 2-1-3 strings are that good, but I do think that his 2-1-3 is better than his 2-1-4-4. The downside between 2-1-3 and 2-1-4 is that the low is 20 frames, so it's really slow, and if people, they know how to fuzzy guard properly, they'll know the low is coming, which means you've lost your turn, and they can get in and start pressuring with jab strings and staggers, compared to 2-1-4, which only has a 12 frame startup and it's -5 on block. But 2-1-3 gives you much more space, even on block. So his next string, in my opinion, his best string, I know this is going to be a hot take or a controversial one, it's his forward 2-1. And as you can see there, it's -13, which means if you do it right up next to somebody, you'll eat a full combo. But this string is 2 mids, so people cannot duck it. And look at that range and look at the pushback on that. It's only -3 on block at max range. If you're next to your opponent, it's -6, which is way less safer. But this is just a 14 frame mid that you can basically throw out at mid screen, and you won't really get punished for it because people are gonna get scared of the second hit. Because if this does land, they get pushed basically full screen. And that brings me to my next point about his forward 2-1. I think it's his best combo ender. It pushes people full screen, which is what you want as Quan Chi, so you could go ahead and start zoning again. Yeah, this forward 2, it's just really good. And really, there's no point into trying to like do a combo from forward 2. Because yeah, you could do stuff like this where you could cancel the forward 2 into the low and get a launcher that way. But most of the time, you just want to let the second hit fly because it puts them at full screen, which means you get to start zoning again. So yeah, forward 2 is honestly probably one of his best pokes, one of his best buttons that he has, because it's just got so much reach. It's a mid, and you can throw it out at about character distance away, and it has a lot of pushback to it, and you can help control the neutral by canceling it into either a special, or you could just let the full string fly, and at this distance your opponent can't punish you. So you can even be further than character distance away. You could be at mid screen and just do both hits. If your opponent sees the first hit whiffs and they don't know about the second hit and they try to walk up, you'll be able to launch them full screen. So yeah, that is why I think his forward 2 is honestly his best button that he has, especially when controlling the spacing and during the neutral. It's got great pushback, it's fast, and it's very safe on block. All around, very good buttons. His next button I want to go over is his back 2. It's this overhead that it's kind of like reptiles where you can charge it completely, and if it's charged completely, it's safe on block. It's +8 for you, which is really good. So you can go ahead and, zone, and it has a lot of pushback. But the other thing about it is that it is cancelable on hit and on block. So unlike Reptile, where you have to hit it max charge to get a combo, you can do a back 2 and cancel into down back 4 and get a combo this way. So there's a lot of guessing that you can make your opponent do with his back 2. Because on block it works as well. If you do a back 2, you can cancel into a down back 4. Now, unlike Reptile's back 2, you can't cancel it while you're charging it into any specials. It doesn't work that way. But it's an overhead that he has, and it has its purpose. I don't use it a lot personally because it's 27 frames by itself, and it's -12 on block if you don't charge it, which means you eat a full combo. But you can space it out, kind of, to where maybe you won't get punished, but for the most part, you'll get punished if it doesn't hit. And of course, if you're charging it, then your opponents can go ahead and just hit you while you charge. But again, that's why you would want to do it mid combo, maybe from like a Cyrax net from his 1-2. You could get a full charge and you can do some cool stuff this way. But otherwise, I don't use it too much. And it does have that guessing game that you can do with it by going into a back 2, down back 4. But otherwise, I don't really throw it out. It's too slow. You have to be really close to your opponent and they could hit you out of it. There's just a lot that could go wrong with this back 2, which is why I personally don't use it all that often. But it definitely does have some things that makes it decent. And his next button I'm gonna go over is his stand 3. It's this high, and it has a lot of reach. It hits about character distance away. Yep, I'd say that's about character distance. And it's really good to just throw it out in the neutral. It has a lot of pushback on it if it gets blocked. The downside with it is that you cannot special cancel. As you can see there, I was mashing back forward 1. Can't special cancel it. And it is only -6 on block. And it's actually a really good anti-air as well. If people try to jump in on me and I don't do a down back 4 or a down 2, then I will actually go for a stand 3, because stand 3 is a jump cancelable move. So what is a jump cancel? There are certain characters in this game that have jump cancelable moves, but a jump cancel means you can go immediately into a jump from a special or a button, as long as it says is a jump cancelable move. So you could get a combo like that. And another really good thing about it is that I like to use it from his stand 1-3. Always go into the tongue after a stand 1-3, so you could do this combo and push your opponent full screen. Yes, you could do stand 1-3 into stand 4 and then get a launcher with the tongue, but his stand 3 allows you to get tons of distance and around 20% damage just from this one button. Now it is a high, which means people can duck it, so you do have to be careful of that. But if your opponent does duck and they're choosing to crouch block, they will get hit by it, though it does have actually less distance on it compared to if they're standing. But even with as if they were standing, it has very good pushback on it. It's still -6. If you're right next to your opponent, it's still -6 because it's basically it's his front kick. So it's safe on block. Yeah, it's a very, very good space control neutral poke. You just throw it out if someone is kind of at character distance and they're not really doing a whole lot. You just throw this out. If it lands, you get a neat little 20% combo that can lead you into a zoning setup, or you could go ahead and spend meter to close out a round, close out the game. So the next string I want to go over is his back 3-4-2. And on hit, it looks like this. It is a combo starter. You go into that, and then you could do some cool stuff that way. Yeah, it hits low, mid, and then it hits high. And you can actually special cancel from the second hit, but if you do get the back 3-4-2, you don't really want to special cancel from the second hit because you'll get more damage, and you can still get the distance from simply doing this combo that you would want. And it's around 30%. So yeah, back 3-4-2 is pretty good, obviously, if it lands, but on block, the last hit will actually whiff, but it does make Quan Chi's hurt box move back, so if someone tries to do a jab, they can actually whiff, and you'll be blocking by the time they can do their next thing. But yeah, on block, it's -7, which means you're safe to do it. And it does have a lot of reach as well. Some people will try to walk up on you if you whiff the first hit, which can definitely catch them out. And it's very easy to hit confirm into the full thing. You just do back 3-4, and if it hits, you could have a lot of time to press 2, and you could get a full combo that way. And then back 3 itself is a low, but if they block it, again, very safe, -7. The problem with it is that it is very slow, which means you're not really going to be able to punish much of anything with the back 3 portion. But it's very easy to catch people who are going to walk up if you whiff the first hit, and it's very easy to hit confirm into the full thing. So it's not a bad string. It's not necessarily a very good one. It's not his best string. I think it's right down the middle of it has its purpose. It's very good in terms of scaling, and it's very easy to hit confirm into the full string, so you could get a neat little combo. So the next button of his I want to go over is his stand 4. It is a tracking high, and it looks like that. It has a lot of hit advantage, and as I showed earlier, you can confirm from this into a back forward 1. You can confirm into a back forward 4. If they are close enough, you can do a down back 4 and maybe amplify so you get a combo. And of course, at any distance, you can put people in the cage from his stand 4. So his stand 4 is really good. It's only got 12 frames of startup, which makes it a pretty fast high, and it tracks people. The downside to it is that on block, it is so minus. It is -21 anywhere on screen. If you're right next to your opponent, you'll eat a full combo. If your opponent ducks it, it has 45 frames of recovery, which means people can actually dash up and then do like a stand 1-2 and then combo you that way. But the way you can mitigate some of this is if they are blocking at full screen or close to you, you can go ahead and just cancel into a skull, so you'll be, you won't be -21 on block. And yeah, you can just do things like that. Just cancel into things that will make you safe. For me, I like to cancel into a Cyrax net so I can control the neutral a bit and get some advantage. And Cyrax net makes me very plus, so I can go ahead and set up some zoning situations. But yeah, his stand 4 is really good. And of course, you can do it mid-combo, as I'm sure you've seen people do. because it is a tracking normal. Yeah, his stand 4, very strong. I think it's balanced fairly well with it being very minus on block and having a lot of recovery if people duck it. Definitely don't throw it out right here. Don't throw it out right here. Throw it out around a little more than mid-screen, because if it does land there, his back forward 1 will combo with it. Or you could confirm into a down back 4, as I said. You can basically do whatever you want from his stand 4. The only downside is that it's a little risky to do, but it is incredibly strong. Never ever do it against a jumping opponent, by the way. If they're jumping, it's way too slow. That is basically the counter to his stand 4. Obviously right there, I kind of found a perfect timing to actually hit people out of their jump, but most of the time, someone does a random jump, they're expecting you to do that. That whiffs 90% of the time in a real match. And of course, has a lot of recovery, and they're right next to you, so they get to punish you and do a full combo. And his final string is his forward 4-4, and it looks like this. It's 2 highs. It has an 11 frame startup, which is pretty quick. It has some pretty bad distance, all things considered. Like, I rarely ever use the string because 1 on block, yeah, it's -2, and the second hit is also safe. It's -5, and it does push them about mid-screen. The main problem is that it's 2 highs, which means if people are crouching, you know, it just goes right over them, and it has a lot of recovery, which means people can go ahead and actually just duck and then punish you for it. Now, if you try to space it out, it doesn't have great reach, which means people will it'll actually whiff against a lot of people. And the main use of it actually is during combos, I would say so, because it actually bounces your opponent like that. So what you can do is do something like this, do a forward 4, cancel into fatal blow, and you got a fatal blow combo right there. So that is the main use of his forward 4-4. But otherwise, if you use it like that in a combo, it also gives you tons of advantage and puts them at full screen. But if you hit twice like that, kind of puts them at full screen, but it's much better to do it mid-combo. But that's going to do it for his regular strings. Now I'm going to show you his air strings. So his air strings, Quan Chi has only 2, and they're actually both pretty good. So his first one is 1-2-2. And it looks like that. Incredibly good air string because it guarantees you some hit advantage, and it guarantees that you are at full screen. And it's even better that it puts people in corners pretty easily. If you're around mid-screen, more often than not, and you go into 1-2-2, people will end up in the corner, which is really good for Quan Chi. And you can go ahead and start zoning. This 1-2-2 is a pretty good string. And his next air string is his 2-1, and it's his combo extending air string. Bounces your opponent on the ground, so you could do some cool stuff and continue a combo. But the other benefit of 2-1 is that it's special cancelable, so you could do stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And you know, with the right cameo, you could do a 2-1, do that, pick them back up, and keep going and do some more stuff. But that's gonna do it for his air strings. And that is it for Quan Chi's strings, normals, and specials. I'm gonna show you some combos now. I'm gonna show you some setups now. And I do want to preface this section with this. Quan Chi, he has some very high damage combos. I'm sure you've seen people with like Scorpion, it's like, oh, 58% damage. But the damage from those combos comes from his fatal blow. But at the same time, it's that they end the combos with his down back 4, which you don't really want to do. You don't want to end combos with down back 4 because if you do that, they're right next to you. You want to end your combos with his forward 2-1 so that you can get that full screen distance and go ahead and start zoning. But yeah, I'm going to show you some combos now. I'll have the inputs, you know, here on the screen and probably in the comments or something. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I hope this helped, and I guess enjoy watching these combos. I'll see you in the next one.